the technology for the patients continues to just get more complex, I think the training and the awareness and the capabilities that we need to do to help these surgeons influence that patient care in that way needs to get more complex as well.
Welcome to the Medical Sales Accelerator Podcast. I'm Zed Williamson.
And I'm Clark Wiederhold.
This podcast exists to put scale to the value you get from those great one-to-one conversations at sales meetings and conferences.
You're pushing and asking your customers to change the way they practice and that they do business every single day. How is your organization changing the way they go to market?
That's why we're speaking with our guest today, Matt Wheeler, CRO of MedTech, an immersive training and awareness platform. Matt has created over $2 billion in pipeline opportunity. He's considered a top 1%er from Zoom Info and sales. He's participated in 2 IPOs, and he's managed over $600 million in new deal sales. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate the opportunity, guys. Look forward to it.
So Matt, you guys at MedTech, one, you bring a really interesting background to the table, coming outside of industry for most of it, which I think is refreshing. I have a personal opinion that there's too much incestuous knowledge of people having to have been in tech or med device, I should say. So I'm interested to hear, things through your lens. Tell us about MedTech a little bit and what you guys are doing in the technology space, the MedTech, med device space.
Yeah, I like the comment there because I think I'm a disruptor in the space myself because I'm technology driven. And as you mentioned, a lot of people are more from the device space itself. And we have a good blend of that. We've got, a lot of good advisors in the company that are from that space and can kind of help us understand what the expectations are from the medical device side. But we're also here to kind of change the way companies have been doing things traditionally, right? The old ways don't always continue to work. They become a little bit static or redundant. And I think that, ideally, I always lead with this kind of the PPP Act, right? It's not the government model from COVID. It's the prospect protection plan where you actually come out and think about who are we reaching out to, whether it's MedTech or the device manufacturers, and how are we engaging with them to keep them excited and educate them on, what we're doing and keep that fresh, right? Get away from the old mindset of walking into an office and handing what I call a flat paper or a white paper out, right? It's only so meaningful and only so many people are going to retain information from that. And I think that's where MedTech comes in. We're really driving performance utilizing software that allows us to capture the KPIs, the ROIs, the interaction, even down to, where people are at in the world and how we're able to help them in different locations.
Cool. So what specifically is your technology doing for device companies? Where do you fall in? Mm-hmm. Are you a CRM? I know the answer, but I want you to articulate.
Yeah, we are a training and awareness platform, but really what we are, we're a live streamer platform, right? So we're a software company that really focuses on being able to get into an operating room and be able to stream that operation out in real time or record it. That's another option. And we have 2 ways of doing that. We typically do it through VR for the surgeons because we found through studies that if you can get a surgeon into a VR headset, that they're truly engaged, they're not distracted, they can't look at their cell phones while they're in a headset, right? So they're able to really pay attention and retain information at a different pace than they would, sometimes even better than if they were in the room. Because the studies that we saw, and by participating in the operating room, we saw a lot of times where you fly people out to an operating room and then guess what? You're behind another surgeon. So there's a limitation to the view you even have. We just did the MedEd Combine as an example. We had surgeons leave the operating room and then go into the waiting room, put a headset on because they had a better view of the operation from our headset. And now today we actually have 2 new offerings that we just put out into the market. They're relatively new out of beta about 6 weeks ago. One is our immersive 2D player, which now allows people that don't have headsets, right? Headsets aren't still as common as an iPad, a laptop, or an iPhone. They will be, and Apple's about to help us get there quicker with the launch of their new headset. But until then, we want to make sure that everyone has access to immersive training. So what we did was we took and built a 2D version of our 3D player. And it allows you to still have that unique view of the operating room. So in our number one thing was like, no matter who joins one of the operations or the surgeries, that they can look at that surgery however they want to look at it. You can move around the main view of the room. You can take overlays from different devices and spread them out on the screen and really get the view that you're looking for. If you're a cart tech and you want to watch what the cart tech's doing, watch that. If you're really interested in, some of the devices or a robot system, the robotic systems or anything like that, you can enlarge those to get data from that. But the idea is that we can take that operating room and offer it to anyone in the world at any time. And when I got into this market, one of the first things that I picked up on was usually, these companies, the medical device companies, are flying people out to these locations, and they're only able to fit 3 to 5 people in a room because those rooms are small. It gets a little uncomfortable, and then there's a lot of risk to the hospital bringing people in and out of those locations. You're exposing, additional things into the operation. With MedTech, you can have 100 people in a single operation at any time. You can put 50 people in a headset, 50 people on 2D. You can, bring people in from not just sales, but R&D. Your prof ed team could be involved. Marketing could, host a webinar or something from a live event. Or you could really get the sales team in there to bring their guests into that environment remotely. And what we're seeing now is where a traditional sales rep in the medical device field could have 2 or 3 meetings a week by flying all over the place or driving down the road a good ways to meet with people in an office or wait in an operating room lobby. They can now invite guests into a virtual meeting and have 10, 15 of them a week, or send a headset out that has a simulation of the surgery that just happened last week or wherever it may be. So there's just a massive transformation going on regarding how we give these experiences and the amount of access we can now give to people that may not have gotten that access prior.
What's interesting, if we were in a conference room with a whiteboard and we were in brainstorming mode and we wanted to create the medical device world, and we said, someone in the room said, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to create this opportunity to bring new technology to surgeons. Oh, that's great. And how are we going to train them? What we're going to do is we're going to force them to stop their business. We're going to fly them across the country, make them take 3 days out of their practice, which is going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars. And we're going to make it really miserable and hard to grasp. No one in that room would go, hey, that's a sweet idea.
Sign me up.
Right. But that's what's happening. And I know I went overboard a little bit, but that's what's happening. And what it sounds like you're doing is, for the right scenario, not only are you providing training, but you're also providing something that's even more valuable to that surgeon. And you're giving them the opportunity to stay and still generate revenue for their practice, because when they leave, the practice basically has to shut down.
It does shut down, and we're hearing from the largest medical device companies in the world that the surgeons are now pushing back, right? When we went through the pandemic, it just opened the eyes and ears of everyone in the audience that said, hey, why are we doing things like this? And I think when the pandemic was, over, which, I think those things will always be part of our lives moving forward, I think a lot of people stopped and tried to go back to the old practice of flying people out to do these events. And I think more and more people now are pushing back to say, listen, this is just a really ineffective way to do this. Number one, it is truly unfair to the organizations hosting it, meaning what I hear from our clients is that they fly out 10 surgeons, 8 of them they never hear from again, right? And that's a waste of their resources. And on the flip side of that, the surgeons probably would like to have a little more information before you fly them halfway across the country. It's like, let's give them some earlier stage education and touch points, and now we allow, as an example, a sales rep can be armed with a headset that doesn't require any internet service. It's preloaded with, up to 3 hours of recorded demos if you wanted that many. And they could walk into a surgeon's office and in 5 minutes show them what that application is to offer that patient care and get them interested, or at least intrigued in some way. And if that went well, then they could invite them to a live event where they could still have that peer-to-peer communication with the surgeon in a live operation on the headset. And I think that it's just so beneficial, because then if they have interest from there, we're never going to want to replace those live experiences. We do believe that they're very valuable, and there's a good way to build rapport and relationships there. But let's give, an opportunity to learn more before we get there and not waste everyone's time and energy. And then once you're there, what we see is, number one, we're seeing where sales reps are now able to meet with more than 3 to 4x the normal people that they were meeting with when they had to do it live. So that just accelerates the amount of people you can get into early stage funnel. And then what we see is, once you get them through the headset interaction where they've now seen what you're doing for the patient in some sort of recorded fashion, then you invite them to a live event. Now you're not waiting 3 months for a live event. You can just invite them to the next one that's coming up. They don't have to do anything besides schedule an hour on their calendar. They can watch that from their home or office. They don't have to fly anywhere.
Yep.
So what we're seeing is, after they do that live event, and then they do go, or I'm sorry, after they do the live event in our headset, and then they go to a live event, we're seeing about a 40 to 50% higher conversion from the people that attended those live events to then going back and wanting to insert that into patient care. There's not a lack of engagement. They already knew what they were getting involved with. They had a good idea of what the solution did for their patient. And they asked some questions in those scenarios. And then they went out to be hands-on. Sometimes they have to be scrubbed in, whatever that may be, to really have that experience live in person. But then we're seeing them now come back and improve the patient side of it by accelerating new devices, getting into a patient, which is the goal of all this. Make sure that we take the latest technology, the greatest new tech, and put it into the patient as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. The last part I'll touch on there is like, there's this old mindset of like, you see one, you do one, you teach one. Well, I'm sorry, but the complexity of the devices that are out there now, there's a reason we have to have the medical device people in the room most of the time, because these are very complex devices. There's a stage to the way they go in. There's a certain way that the procedures have to be done. And they're there as just a kind of a backup plan in case there's just questions in the middle of an operation. With something like this, you could have a surgeon on site watching a live one, and then they could leave with a recorded version and watch it 10 more times before they go to do the patient care piece. So there's just so much more advancement as the technology for the patients continues to just get more complex. I think the training and the awareness and the capabilities that we need to do to help these surgeons influence that patient care in that way needs to get more complex as well.
You're a SaaS guy. You come in seeing a lot of, your history is going to be seeing a lot of technology impact changes in business. You're coming into medical device. Medical device can be really on the cutting edge of technology from the medical side, but also really old on the
10 years behind.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what I'm curious is, you probably had some excitement getting into this. Has anything surprised you that you weren't expecting with this idea of bringing this approach to learning?
Yes, there's things that, like, I come in as a technologist, right? I get really excited about the advancement of tech because we can learn from everything that we're doing. Everything we're doing is reportable. We can see how long someone's in a headset, what they're most focused on when they're in that headset, what location of the world they're in. And, I like the fact that we can help reduce some of the carbon footprint by not sending people over the world, even if it's a small impact, that's great. I like the fact that we can now start working with remote areas of the world that don't have advanced training and offer them training. And then recently we were in the MedEd Combine, and one of the female surgeons there was talking to us about how when she was in med school, she had her first child and she wasn't able to go and do the on-site operations and get that experience. And she made a comment to us and said, if I had had this when I was in med school, I could have seen as many surgeries as I needed to before I, got through the other parts of the course. And then I wouldn't have been behind, and it would have been more inclusive to people that have different things going on, that don't have the ability to travel because they may not have come up with a fortunate environment where they're maybe just scrapping by to get through college, right, in some or medical school, or they're just in a situation where they have children at home or things. And those are things as a man in the industry, I hadn't thought about from the woman's perspective there, but it really inspired me even more, because I think there's just, besides the benefits that we have for sales, marketing, profit, and R&D, there's just such a good human aspect of what we're doing and what we can help the world with. And that's the part that gets me excited every day, because there's tons of technology out there and I've been involved with some really good tech, but there's so much more to this and the way that we're going to help transform that industry. And you're right. I think one of the biggest wake-up calls when I got here, because I've been an advanced sales guy, and a lot of it's been in the IT security space, the most advanced part of technology. I think that I found out that the medical space is probably 5 years behind most sales organizations in a tech position. But what I've seen, even since January, it was really a lot about me coming in, talking about how great the technology was and how we could help transform the way you onboard salespeople and give them immediate access to things that they don't necessarily get because they don't have to travel around to do this. And it's in an immersive way, not just we're not just trying to come in with an iPhone or a GoPro strapped on our chest like we've seen done in the market, which has some HIPAA and SOC 2 compliance potential problems.
Yep.
We're able to do it in a very secure way. And give these people access to training. R&D is an example as well. They tell me that they can only go and see 3 or 4 operations a year, and that they only hear from people when there's a problem in the market. Then they hear from salespeople. We're trying to innovate, right? So the innovative side of this is, hey, now R&D can have a headset under their desk. There's a schedule. Every month there's an event. We're not trying to look for problems. We're trying to innovate, right? So for R&D, let's join every event, see if the next solution that you build as a device company can be more innovative, and look for ways to get better and better at what we're doing, not just respond to problems. So there's just so many possibilities, right? When we start looking at the different types of people within the organization that we can influence using technology like this.
Yeah, I love this for a lot of reasons, but if I was going to distill it down, this is what's ringing in my head. This is working smarter, not harder, right? And you're condensing time and you're giving scale all at the same time. To your point, you're bringing on, 10, 20, 30 new sales reps over the next quarter, year, whatever it may be. Experience in the cases is invaluable. And if you can accelerate that and give them exposure to different parts of the country, it allows them to not only experience the technical aspects of it, but also discuss what they're seeing in other regions. It just adds scale to their short tenure in this little, cubicle space, right? That they're working in specialty. From a physician perspective and the training there, I mean, that just feels blatantly obvious to me, the value that it brings. So I'm not even going to go down that path, but what it allows you to do from an executional sales perspective, a business generation perspective, when you marry, I know from a compliance perspective, you got to do certain things, but the reality is, in order to move business, you have to also professionally train. And there is a component to driving those professional education events and things of that nature. When you give it scale, who do you think's getting the people to those events? Well, it's the field team. And it creates this entire cadence of communication that you can create around these events that is very, very beneficial. And you're not talking about, hey, do you have a case for me right now? It allows you to separate from that, commission breath push that just so many people can have. And all the while, you're skilling up and training your next great customers while you're developing that relationship, that rapport, the expertise. I've experienced this with the sales team in the past, very specifically. And as I've gotten experience with your technology and exposure to it, I can see how much better this is than what we were doing, 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And that worked really well. It was just a massive, massive heavy lift for the organization that I was working for at the time. So this is really cool stuff. I'm interested in what you guys are doing, and I think it's going to have a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, my first use case when I came in was working with one of the top 10 medical device manufacturers in the world. Yeah. And they talked about the initiative they have to bring 150 more medical device salespeople on in the first 6 months that we were working with them. And they were talking about, in some situations with their complex devices, that it took up to 50 operation experiences for the medical device person to be part of before they ever allow them to go out into the field. So one of the first things we started doing was just building the use case around trying to consolidate that with virtual learning. And they still need the in-person stuff. It's very critical, but we were able to take and 100%. Do 1/3 of it live, right, with the in-person at the event sites. And then we were able to take the other 2/3 and turn it into virtual learning. And part of that even into a recorded piece where we're recording some of them and really storylining the operations that we were making sure that we had effective training there. The thing that we just released on the training side was our library. We have a virtual library now where you can access that from a headset or the 2D platform on our software platform. And within that, you can actually, and this is something you don't see in that demo, but it's coming out soon. We could record an operation with one of our key opinion leaders. And then afterwards, we could bring the key opinion leader in and put them on an overlay, and they could speak to the operation that they're doing in that particular surgery. They can pause the screen, circle different areas of the screen, and really help explain what's going on to answer practical questions within the operating process, and then really have a more direct experience with training that way. And that's really the next iteration of this, where we're going now. It's like we started off as a live only 3D company. We then have moved over to 2D. Not just to compete with some of the vendors that are known out there, right, that have more of the flat screen experience. We want it to be immersive. We want it to be really immersive, to where you have the same experience in 2D as you do in 3D. But then the recordings library, I think, is going to be the biggest thing. Now, when you start with us before, it was like we had to go through, and we have over 50 locations right now that are set up in the US for live surgeries to take place. We wanted to really be able to make it easier for people to work with us. And we have a mobility team now that can go on site and record the experience. So in the beginning, it could just start with sales and marketing to say, hey, let's go get a couple of operations recorded, and then empower our sales team with these headsets so they can go into a surgeon's office to meet with them for half an hour or 5 minutes, give them a quick experience on what that looks like. And then you have the ability to send a link over, a 2D link through an email to get them to look at that if you can't get live with them. And then eventually get them to where you can do a live event, with the 3D headset and have that peer-to-peer. We're also seeing right now and we've been invited to some pretty large sales conferences this year with their clients. They're actually the clients' trade shows themselves that are built for internal companies to really participate in. And we're coming there now, and we're using our immersive 2D to put giant touchscreen televisions up, and you can literally walk over and touch the overlays and drag them down on the screen and move them around to look at the operation on the trade show floor. So you have a headset, right? So somebody can experience that at the trade show, or they can use the 2D immersive television touchscreen to do it that way. So it's just all about that engagement level. So you have, training at first, bringing the salespeople in, and then the ongoing awareness part that we really service with the sales and marketing. But the ongoing training too, like we talk a lot about early stage, getting people up to speed, putting them out into the market. I've been a sales trainer for 15, almost 20 years. If you stop training people, you're losing, right? So you have to do constant training. Salespeople should be required to be joining one of these events on a monthly basis. Every month, just go in and learn something new.
One of the things that's really powerful about this goes with the saying that I came to love and that's seeing is believing. And it's just a reality. You can talk about it. Many of the folks listening here, you've got a widget or you've got a service that creates a different outcome through a different workflow or whatever it may be, different technique, a whole different treatment protocol. And the prospects you're talking to that you're working to get bought into the future, not the past, seeing it helps make believing it that much more concrete. And that's one reason why the things you're talking about, Matt, they're so powerful, because you can take my word for it off the table. Look, I get it. I've got the name of my scrubs. I'm a sales rep and I'm here to move business. I want the good outcomes because that's good for my business. But look, listen, watch what your peers are doing. Like, watch the outcomes, see the impact that it had on the patient's lives. If you've got some post-op stuff that you can then overlay, like my mind is teeming with ideas, I should say, of the overlay piece and how you can have somebody come in and discuss the pre-op workup and discussions that they had with patients. Because that's a big fear always, is this is different. What do I say to them so they have the proper expectations, as well as the actual technique and what's happening in the case. And then the post-op experience. Here's what they're experiencing. Here's what that conversation sounded like. All of those pieces help, reduce the gap of the unknown. And that unknown is what keeps folks from moving forward so fast, because it's always that ambiguity effect is filled with the worst possible scenario in their mind. Man, I'm excited about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and we're partnering with Medical Sales College right out of Tampa here. We try to partner up with as many people as we can, and Camels is another with USF here. We've got some really good innovation right here in the state of Florida, which is nice. Two real quick things. One is our largest customer, on average, when they do 16 events, they save $300,000 on average from 16 events. The idea behind our platform is to get as many people into an event as possible, right, while keeping the costs consistent or lower. On another example, real quick, the second largest medical device company that we work with, and they're pretty much the second largest in the world as well, their top sales rep there accredited MedTech for being the reason that she actually accomplished the highest level of sales last year in her company. And the reason she said that was because historically she's been meeting with 2 to 3 surgeons on a weekly basis, and now she's meeting with 7 to 10.
Yep. You
mailing headsets out, she's meeting online, and like she's just crushing it, getting that early education and awareness out there. And then when she fills rooms for live events in operating centers where she's there with the surgeons, they're higher qualified and they're converting higher. So that's, it's part of why she was the top sales rep last year.
Yep.
We're taking all that knowledge, right, and helping. It's not, at first we were looked at as just, it's a cool thing you put on your head and everybody gets excited right away about how cool it is. It's truly a transformation. We're helping the companies transform their business.
Yeah.
It's not just a toy, right? It's a way to take, a technology and actually transform the way you do business. And we predict that they're going to get 30% more meetings, 40% more meetings on a weekly basis, 30 to 40% more conversions from their live events into patient care, right, on an annual basis. And then all the reduction of cost and everything else that we're doing to help their business. It's a lot to take in, but we partner with them and truly help them get there. And that's what we're doing with the companies that we work with today.
What are your sales team members hearing from potential customers that starts with a yeah, but? So they get it, but they go,
yeah,
but what kind of stuff does come across?
Yeah, and some of it's us learning. We're learning the stages that these medical device companies go through too. Because at first it was like, they haven't been through their clinicals and they're not approved for certain things. And at first that seemed like a roadblock for us, but it's not, because they're meeting with investors. They're trying to encourage KOLs so we can build these headsets, and they're not very expensive starting off, to give them some way to demonstrate the product. I met with someone the other week that had an example of their solution here, and they're meeting on Zoom calls and showing that all day long, where we could record that once and they could show it 10,000 times. So there's just some misunderstanding about what part or position their business is in before they're ready to get there. And we can really help with every stage to a degree if it's complex enough and we can record it the right way and be meaningful for them. I think the biggest thing is that a lot of companies think they're doing it already, right? They already think that, hey, we're in there recording this in some way. But I've seen a lot of those examples, right? And we're not trying to be an emergency turn it on when you need it system. We're really there to be an immersive system, meaning we're giving you the best views. We're going to either have a technician on site that can help you set that up so you're getting the best angle for the surgeons to be able to capture what's going on, as well as that live feed for the peer-to-peer communication. But there are companies out there that have some way of doing this, and they're trying to understand, what is the benefit of putting a surgeon in VR versus just showing them a flat Zoom call like this. And we know that the retention from VR is over 30% higher if you can put them on a headset. So again, we're not trying to replace the live experience, but there is some value to where if we're not trying to do it live and we're trying to do it remotely, you're not going to be able to do it better than in a headset. It's going to give you the best view, and you're going to feel like you're in the room. And when you guys see that 2D link that I sent over that shows you the immersive way the screens work, when you have a headset on, and if you guys want one, reach out to me. I'll get you one over so you can experience it. There's nothing like this. I mean, the room is just so big, and you're able to just look at it better than if you were in the room, because we all know that if you're in the room, most of the time the surgeon's 6'2", you're stuck trying to see it behind somebody's head, right? Either way, it's just not a good position or angle. And we constantly see people leave an operating room and go into a lobby to put our headsets on, because we're always given that best view. So I think a lot of times it's just, hey, we think we're doing it. And then I think a lot of times too, people got involved with maybe the virtual reality piece, or their kids have it and they think it's a gaming solution.
Sure.
And we're now
starting to shoot zombies.
Yeah, it's starting to be more commercialized. And that was Apple's position when they're coming out in the market with their headset, because we have Facebook and all that stuff for the gaming, and it's fine. But the commercial aspect, it's still early adoption phase for that. And we're seeing the companies that want to be cutting edge and go out and continue. The reason they're big is because they're innovative and they love crushing smaller companies.
Yeah.
And the people that we're seeing adopt quickest are those companies, right? There's a reason for that. Because it's not really cost. Our cost isn't so astronomical. I mean, it's the cost of a trade show annually or something. It's just not that much investment to get started with us. But you have to be innovative, and you have to have the mentality that you want to transform the way sales is engaging, the way marketing presents itself, the way R&D is not just there as a reactive component of your business. They're becoming proactive and innovative. And then for Prof Ed, they want to give the surgeons the best experience possible anyway. So I think we're seeing a lot of interest from that department, but they also, want to incorporate these other areas of the business to be able to help fund it and move it along a little bit quicker. But that is it. It's just early for, it was early. I think in the next 24 months, I think a VR headset is going to start to become as common as the iPhone, the iPad, and the laptop. I really do. That's where it's headed.
I'm envisioning all of this amazing content that if more surgeons in somebody's space got access to and saw, it would lead to more good conversations with their commercial teams, and then helping more patients through their solution. Yeah, I happen to know a little company that helps, medical device companies drive more folks to content like that. It's Trackable Med. So as people are engaging with you and they want to get more eyeballs on that content, they need to engage with us. Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm really excited. I've said it 3 times about what you guys are bringing to the marketplace, but it's because I know it's going to make impact, and it's going to help more people grow business and help more people impact lives.
Thank you very much. I believe that too.
Yeah, it's been great having you.
I appreciate that. And listen, I was with this little company called Four Scout Technology, back in 2008. And we were in the NAC space, network access control, BYOD, bring your own device to work, right? So the iPad exploded, and then everybody tried to bring their iPad into work. And we had built this technology that the world kind of came to at this moment in life. And we went from 30 million in revenue to 280 million and became a public company in 3 years. And this feels exactly like that, like the whole build it and they will come. We've built it. It's here. They're coming. It's just a matter of when companies start to really look for things like this and try to really advance their business. But I appreciate all the attention you guys have given us.
Oh, yeah. And, I would suggest to our listeners, go to immertech.com, and right on the homepage, which I appreciate you guys making this simple, is the request a demo button. We'll also put a link to that in our show notes for easy access. And listeners, also go to medicalsalesaccelerator.com. While you're there, you can download a resource that helps you communicate better with your customers. You can sign up for emails so you find out about upcoming episodes, and you can also suggest a topic or a guest.
If you found value in today's episode, do a few things for me. Leave us a review, drop 5 stars, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode and you're alerted when a new episode like this comes out. And then send this episode, go to the square with the arrow at the top, to your friends, your family, your mama, and your daddy. We greatly appreciate it. Matt, once again, thank you for joining us. Make it a great week, everybody.